rise every morning with truth in our hands. No more silence, we take a stand. For the people who cry for the dreams that fade. We speak for the hearts that justice betrayed.
Wait. No, sorry. State House Live. Wait for this. You have to wait. State House Live. Wait. So
thank you very much. Please take your seats. Her Excellency, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada, being President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Honorable Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo, the Honorable Speaker of the Sierra Leone Parliament, Right Honorable Sergey Paul Solomon Thomas, our special guest of honor and guest keynote speaker, Her Excellency Dr. Joyce Banda, First Lady of Sierra Leone and President of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, Her Excellency Dr. Fatima Maada Biel, the Chief Minister of Sierra Leone, Honorable Dr. David Sanger, our guest of honor, the 6th Secretary General of the Commonwealth and first woman to be named and honored in this capacity, the Right Honorable Baroness Patricia Scotland, His Royal Majesty Ogiame Atuwashi the 3rd CFR, the Olu of Ori Kingdom Delta State, Ogiame, Ogbowolu, Afomasi, Ekum, Afo Were Ti Were, the Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, and Heads of Governments, Departments, and Agencies, members of the organized private sector, members of the diplomatic corps, leadership of civil security sector, advisors and technical aides to the President, members of the traditional institution, and leaders of religious bodies, members of the civil society groups, moderators and panelists, distinguished invited guests, the vibrant press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today we are gathered not merely for a conference, but around the great African kitchen of ideas. We gather at the firewood of history around the boiling pot of destiny to prepare a continental delicacy, one that must feed not just this generation, but generations yet unborn. The theme before us is profound, and I see it like trying to make a meal for the entire African continent of cassava, leaves, and rest. So ladies and gentlemen, African leadership is like our cherished cassava leaf and rice delicacy. It is not prepared carelessly. It demands patience, it demands fire, it demands seasoning, a man's clean hands and a pure heart. So today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered in this hall, summoned by a foremost Pan-African, respected for his dignity and identity. He has brought the rice, he has brought the cassava leaves, he has lit the fire of liberation. To set the ball rolling, we'll need our religious leaders to bless this gathering with their words of prayer. And so, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to start off, permit me to invite two of our religious clerics. For the Christian prayer, I have Reverend Father Patrick L. George, and for the Muslim prayer, I invite Sheikh Ibrahim Bari. We'll honor the Almighty by rising as we take the prayers together. Shall we rise, please?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Almighty Father in heaven, we are aware that reimagining African leadership in an era of global uncertainty is a challenge. We live in a world of unpredictable circumstances. And so, Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude and reverence as we gather for this colloquium. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the opportunity to learn, to share, to grow together in wisdom and understanding. With hearts full of gratitude, we come before you to thank you for the gift of leadership and for the blessings you have showered upon our head of state and president. We thank you for the wisdom, the strength, and the understanding that you have given him. We praise you for guiding our president, Brigadier Retired Dr. Julius Maada, and his wife, Her Excellency Dr. Fatima Maada. We thank you for the responsibilities you have entrusted to our president, and for granting him the insight to lead with justice, prudence, and compassion. We thank you for the decisions he has made to shape our lives and to shape the lives of people in this nation. We thank you for the desire he has to serve the common good and for the commitment he has to peace and progress. We ask you to grant us the spirit of courage and creativity to address the emerging challenges of our nation. Lord, we invite your presence in this gathering. Guide our minds and our hearts in truth. Guide our words in your grace and our intentions in your love. Bless all the speakers, the participants, the organizers of this colloquium. Bless them with clarity of thought. Bless them with humility, with light, with spirit, and a sincere desire to seek knowledge for the good of all. May this time of discussion and reflection be fruitful, inspiring us to greater service and deeper understanding and stronger unity. Let your Holy Spirit enlighten us, so that all we do here may honor you and contribute to the building of a better world. We entrust this gathering to your hands, asking for your protection, your peace, and your blessing upon each person present here. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
All right, we'll now have Sheikh Ibrahim Bari to do us the honors of an Islamic prayer.
Your Excellency, distinguished guest, may I kindly ask us to raise our hands as we make this supplication. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Peace and blessing be upon our noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As I make this supplication, I'm inspired by chapter 2, verse 124, where Allah told Prophet Abraham, the father of most of the prophets, that indeed I will make you a leader. So, O Allah, we seek your help, guidance and forgiveness. We declare our faith and trust in you. And we praise you with all goodness. We thank you and do not deny you. O Allah, guide and protect our President, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada. O Allah, guide and inspire His government, state officials, security sector, and our political leaders. O Allah, we pray to you to help and support him to lead our beloved nation, to sustain our peace, national unity, and social cohesion. O Allah, guide the deliberation of this event. Grant positive and progressive leadership qualities to our political, traditional, and religious leaders. O Allah, help and guide the youth and women of this country so they may continue to sustain the national gains and legacies of our country and overcome the challenges and ensure a bright and prosperous future. O Allah, make this nation safe, secure, peaceful, united, and prosperous. O Allah, grant our esteemed foreign invited guests pleasant stay in our country and safe return to their respective countries. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Thank you very much for that prayer. With that said, that means we are ready to commence fully. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. And may I once again thank you for being a part of this and to inform us that everything we need to make this a success is here. Already, we had the presence of privilege to welcome the distinguished Right Honorable Patricia Scotland as she brings the salt of justice and preservation power to the institutional memory. We also want to specially thank His Excellency, His Royal Majesty, who I discuss and describe as one who represents the palm oil and delicacy and fish in the rich culture without leadership becomes dry and disconnected. To all our ministers, they are all part of this cooking. But the lead of it all is His Excellency, who will deliver later for us the keynote address that drives the vision of leadership, innovation, and compassion for us. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the fire is lit, the kitchen of African destiny is open. The ingredients are before us, and our history is waiting to see what kind of leadership meal shall come out of this colloquium. May I therefore say welcome. In the beautiful spirit of Sierra Leone, let's say, Kushe, Una Kushe na Salom. As our grandmother will say in the warmth in their eyes and in their voices, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Welcome, and may Africa rise not merely in power, but in purpose and leadership. I think we should put our hands together for those who have thought it wise to host this colloquium. The air in here is a little hot, And there is a tendency for you to feel as though it is hotter and time is shorter when we're doing what we're doing. It was easy for me when I was invited as MC to the commissioning of a bridge somewhere in one of the countries. That day, the minister had not read his speech before coming, and his PA had only managed to print one copy. We were all standing on the bridge, and in between collecting the speech from his PA's hand, there was a bad wind that came and took the paper, and the thing fell into the river. And he had not read his speech before, so he looked at me, looked at his PA, and made the shortest ever ministerial speech. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, with my speech in the river, I hereby commission the bridge." Your Excellencies, we will focus on the screen and listen and watch the story behind this colloquium, the convergence of the vision and how we have fared since we had our first outing last year. Shall we focus now on the screen, please?
His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada has championed the leadership rooted in values, driven by purpose, and anchored in hope. The Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium in a world hungry for vision and thirsty for integrity, leadership is not a title, it is a call to serve, to inspire, and to transform lives. From the hills of Freetown to the hills of global diplomacy, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada has championed the leadership rooted in values, driven by purpose, and anchored in hope. The Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium is more than an event. It is a gathering of minds and hearts, a platform to shape Africa's future, to spark bold conversations, and to craft solutions that leave no one behind. This year, we focus on African leadership in an era of global uncertainty, not as a slogan, but as a driver of national progress and continental transformation. Here, leaders, thinkers, and innovators converge to share knowledge, ignite ideas, and inspire the next generation. Join us, be part of the dialogue, be part of the change, because when leadership listens, empowers, and acts, a nation rises and Africa shines. The President Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium, inspiring leadership, empowering Africa.
Well, I think we should clap properly for that. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. And to take this further, I have the honor of introducing my co-MC, who is one of you, exported many years ago to the US, but she's truly a global citizen, going everywhere and telling the African story, particularly for the poor, the downtrodden, and the marginalized. She's an award-winning journalist, author, and TV host. Please put your hands together as I welcome Aisha Sese.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. First of all, let me say, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. And let me also say, yesterday, we had a room full of young people. Now, I don't want to suggest that you're all old. I wouldn't do that. I would. But there was so much more energy. So I'm going to do this again and say, good morning, everyone. Louder, louder, louder. You can do this better. Good morning, everyone. Okay. This is going to take a few tries. So it is such a tremendous honor to be here with all of you. It is worth pointing out, for those who were in the room yesterday, that I haven't hosted at home in over 20 years. In fact, I don't think I've ever hosted at home in Sierra Leone. But His Excellency called, and here I am. And I thought, how fitting that my first time on stage, a young man said to me while I was backstage, I've been facing a way to my name talk so. Why are you on stage? And it was what, for those who don't understand Creole, someone thought it was white when they were listening from backstage. And so for anyone who's in any doubt, for the Nigerians in the house who like to claim me and suggest that I'm Nigerian, I am not Nigerian. I am Sierra Leonean through and through. Sorry, Your Majesty. Not that you're claiming me from Warri State, I'm just saying. I'm Sierra Leonean through and through. I go convent, I go Lebanese school. I grew up here, so I am home. And it's such an honor to be here with you. Can we change it? Thank you. Is this one on? It is. Okay. It is such an honor to be here with you for a truly special event. An event that's very close to His Excellency's heart. One which over the next couple of hours is encouraging us individually and collectively to grapple with some difficult questions. What is a good leader? What does a great leader look like in the 21st century? If we know that having women in positions of power yields tremendous dividends for everyone across society, why aren't there more of us? And what do we do to change that? These are some of the questions we should grapple with over the next couple of hours. Again, apologies for the heat. A nice Sierra Leonean welcome for our foreign guests. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the stage a man who has dedicated much of his professional life to these questions of good governance. How do we... Not yet. How do we make sure that it benefits all? He is our nation's Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallow. He will join us on stage shortly to deliver the welcome remarks, but it is just worth pointing out that he is a man who has made it his life's work to ensure that good governance is not something that is out of reach for all, but it is something we grapple with each and every day. Your Excellency, the stage for the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, our sister, Madam Aisha say. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, my boss, Honorable Ministers, Your Majesty, former President of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Royal Highness, former Commonwealth Secretary General, our guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, my task is very simple here, is to welcome you. First, I must say, on behalf of His Excellency, the government and the people of Sierra Leone, I want to personally welcome you to the second edition of the Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium in honor of a great leader that has shaped the modern history of this country. And I want to take the opportunity particularly to welcome our international guests to Sierra Leone for honoring our president, for honoring our great leader, and by extension, for honoring the people of this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will all agree with me that when you look at the theme for this conference, Reimagine Africa in an era of global uncertainty, there's no better time than now. When you look around the world, you see what is happening today. Today, if you take the international development regime alone, the international development window is shrinking. Last year, we were in Sevilla in Spain to discuss global ideas how to finance development in developing countries. The message was clear that international development regime is going to change drastically. African countries are expected to look after themselves. We are expected to develop the kind of capacity that we need to generate revenue to look after ourselves. Today, global priorities are changing. Bilateral movements are getting inward. Global international institutions are struggling to keep global peace and also to propel democracy across the globe. When you leave the global stage, you come to the region, the West African region, you will also agree with me that the region is reshaping itself. Over the last couple of years, we have seen turbulent period in the West African sub-region. The Sahel crisis is there, conflict all over the place. And that was the time that His Excellency assumed the leadership of the Economic Community of West African States. A very, very challenging period where we are seeing a growth of statelessness. Countries that we are proud that before as the beacon of democracy, like Mali, for example, that started the first national conference for ushering democracy in this region, today is confronted with various challenges. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, democracy is reversing in the region at a speed. That is a period wherein our Excellency was given the honor to lead ECOWAS. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when you look at all of this, when you look at this uncertainty both at the global level and also the regional crisis we are confronted with, I think this is the time that you need the courage to lead in these very difficult times. You also need innovation to innovate how you navigate this crisis, both at the global level, the regional level, and also at the domestic level. I usually remind Sierra Leoneans every day that in this country of about 8 million people, 720 kids are born every day in Sierra Leone. That translates into 15 classrooms every day. In this country, every day we give back to 15 classrooms of children. And when you have a president that provides free quality education at maternal level, at primary and secondary level, you can imagine that inscription, you can imagine that enrollment into higher educational institution is overstretched. And all of these young people that go to school free and go to the university will require jobs. These are not really very good times for leadership, but these are the times when real leaders are born and they demonstrate the courage to lead and also the innovation to navigate global realities. And then more importantly, to do all of this, you need to carry your people along. You need to carry your people along. That is what accountability means. And when you demonstrate leadership to lead, and you are innovative about what kind of governance architecture you are going to build, you need to carry your people along. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the era of uncertainty, but this is also the opportunity for bold leadership that we believe has been demonstrated by our leader. In this forward-looking spirit, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you on behalf of His Excellency, and we do hope that this leadership colloquium will become a permanent feature of our governance landscape in this country. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Indeed, as you heard him say there, and I think you'll hear several times throughout this day, we need to carry our people along. Good governance and the good society and inclusive society must involve everyone from the bottom up. That being said, how many people were here yesterday? Show of hands. How many of you were here yesterday? Okay, a good number of you. So for those of you, and thank you for being here for day 2. For those of you who weren't here yesterday centered youth leadership. And so the room was full of young people from more than 10 African countries. They brought their passion, They brought their blunt honesty. They brought dynamic conversation to the room. And it was a day full of unforgettable moments. But don't take my word for it. Check out the screen.
I see the potential, the latent potential which we need to unleash and intense empowerment. Empowerment with knowledge, into resources, and the space by us or with us. The mentorship is important because it affirms to you that yes, this young person has brought you up, is learning you. And the society, that's why I always tell the young people, the God is watching whether my experiment is working. You better believe yourself. I am challenging them that there is agents in you, and we should find ways to express that in a way that is responsible, in a way that is going to make us
applause. It really was a very, very special day. I will say, though, one of my takeaways from yesterday was this question of where is the cutoff point to call yourself a youth? Chief Minister, I'm looking at you. I'm just saying. 35? Is that it? After that, you're that. I'll just say you're full of youthful energy. Let's go with that. So that was indeed one of the questions that emerged, but it was a very, very special day. And today we anticipate many more unforgettable moments, many more probing conversations. And to kick us off, well, first keynote, I'd like to introduce to the stage a woman who is a groundbreaker, a trailblazer. She's a woman of many, many firsts. I don't want to get them wrong, so I will actually use some notes. She is the first Black woman to serve as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. She's also, and I did not know this, she is the first woman to serve as Attorney General for England and Wales and Advocate General for Northern Ireland. And I think what is most important is that every time she assumes a position of power, a position of leadership, she changes the space, the institution, the culture, the people in big and small ways. That is the power of female leadership. And I'm so thrilled to introduce and welcome to the stage Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland.
Can you hear me now? So I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to say good morning, and you're going to show whether you are alive. Good morning. There you are. So this is a very important moment for me, and I'm going to say thank you firstly to the distinguished President, my dear friend and brother, Julius Maada, who is your wonderful President, the First Lady, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, former President Joyce Banda from Malawi, who is my dear sister and friend, Your Royal Majesty, honorable ministers, distinguished elders, young leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to talk about leadership and female leadership, but I think it's only fair that I make a full and frank confession before I start. And that is, as I told others yesterday, that I am one of my parents' 10 only children. But I have 7 brothers and a most magnificent father. And I grew up believing that men were wonderful, that they were kind, they were generous, they were intelligent and bright and trustworthy. And that is something that I think we bear in mind, that when we talk about women, we are not forgetting our wonderful men. But as my mother would tell us when we were young, we don't let men do anything else on their own, so why do we women allow them to run the world? They need our help. And I first want to thank His Excellency the President for bringing us all together, and his most generous invitation, because he has championed leadership in education, inclusion, in women's empowerment, and human capital development across this continent, not just in Sierra Leone. And he has truly walked the talk when it comes to supporting women leaders. And I want to take this opportunity, if I may, to thank him for supporting me as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the first woman to have that role throughout. And I have to confess to you, there were times when I really needed that leadership, that friendship, and that solidarity. And your President and his First Lady gave it to me without reservation. Because we have spoken yesterday and today about courage and about the fact that leadership demands courage. Well, if you wanted to see what courage looks like in its personification, then I think you need look no further than your President. Africa today stands at a defining moment of its history. This continent is the youngest continent on Earth. Ours is also one of the richest continents in culture, creativity, resilience, and natural wealth. And yet ours is also a continent still too often constrained by systems that do not fully unlock the talents of all of our people. And I say our people because I'm very much an African woman from the continent of the Caribbean, but African nonetheless. That is why today's theme, Power in Equity, Advancing Women's Leadership for Better Africa, is not merely a conversation about representation. It's a conversation about power, about prosperity, about stability, about governance, about future competitiveness of our nations. Because the truth is simple. No nation can rise fully whilst half its talent remains unutilized. It's a comment made by His Excellency the President yesterday. and I wish to fully underline and endorse it. And no continent can lead globally whilst women continue to face structural barriers to leadership, to finance, to ownership, and decision-making. We know this, not only morally, we know economically, institutionally, strategically. Around the world, the evidence is now overwhelming. Countries that invest in women's leadership are more stable. The institutions are more trusted. The economies are more resilient. The communities are more cohesive, and their governance outcomes improve. Women leaders consistently strengthen both long-term thinking, social investment, institutional accountability, and peace building. And perhaps most importantly, in this era of uncertainty, women leaders often govern with a deeper understanding that leadership is not domination, leadership is stewardship. A reason and a lesson that the greatest leaders have all learned, not least my friend and brother, President Bio, and my sister, President Joyce Banda. Remember what she did, not only for Malawi, but for Africa, and what she is still doing today. Africa needs more stewardship because we are living through an age of profound global disruption, economic volatility, climate shocks, technological transformation, geopolitical fragmentation, rising debt pressures, institutional distrust, and the growing anxiety of our young people searching for opportunity and dignity. In such an age, leadership cannot merely be charismatic. It must be credible. Leadership today requires courage. We said that all day yesterday, constantly, that word courage, 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 echoed throughout the room and throughout the day. But it needs more than courage. It needs competence, compassion, and institutional discipline. And this is where the conversation about women's leadership becomes so important. Too often, women are invited into leadership systems that were never designed for inclusion. I go so far to say in some of the institutions, if you go to the bathrooms are male and there are no female. So it wasn't meant to include. Systems where access to finance remains unequal, where political participation is harder, where unpaid labor remains invisible, where mentorship networks are weaker, where decision-making structures remain exclusionary. So our task is not simply to add women into existing structures. Our task is to redesign systems so that talent, integrity, and contribution matter more than patronage, proximity, or inherited advantage. That means legal reform, educational access, digital inclusion, financial inclusion, institutional reform, and above all, accountability. Because equality without implementation is merely aspiration. And Africa is overflowing with aspiration. But what we really need is execution. And that is why I have always believed that governance matters deeply. Not governance as paperwork, but governance as the ability of a nation to deliver dignity, fairness, opportunity, and trust to its people. Strong institutions are not abstract concepts. They determine whether a young woman can access credit, whether a business can grow fairly, whether justice is delivered consistently, can be touched, tasted, felt by the individual members of the community, whether public resources reach communities honestly, whether citizens trust the future enough to invest in it. Institutional credibility is now one of the most valuable forms of national capital. And this matters enormously to Africa's future, because global capital today is searching for trusted destinations. Young entrepreneurs are seeking for enabling environments, and innovation and innovators are searching for systems that reward merit, and women are searching for pathways to leadership that are real and not symbolic. Africa's next chapter, and therefore its most important chapter, is not going to be written only by natural resources. It will be written by institutional capability, by our ability to build societies which are transparent, strengthened, where public trust is protected, where innovation is encouraged responsibly, where technology serves humanity rather than replacing it, and where leadership is measured not by power accumulated, but by lives improved. And I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond, when women are empowered within strong institutions, transformations accelerate. When I took up office in the Commonwealth in 2016, the Commonwealth Secretariat was rated as a C-rated organisation. We had just over 3 months money in the bank, which would mean that if we were not an international institution, we would have been trading whilst insolvent. By the time I left in 2025, in fact, by 18 months after I arrived, we were rated as a AAA rated organisation. We had solved our debts, and we met 100% of our strategic plan. And how was it done? It was done by listening, by working with our leaders, our ministers, and our people, and by delivering change together. And that inclusive leadership, not the money, not the technology, that inclusive leadership is what made the difference. And people had to come with us, had to trust us. And that would not have been done if women and men did not work together in partnership equally. Many people say, why have the women leaders done so well, and why have their governments done so well? Is it because women are intrinsically better? And there's a temptation, of course, for the ladies to say, but of course. But the truth is, not so. The truth is, if you look at the women's administration, they are equal. You have wonderful men working with good women. And when you look at the administrations led by men, which have done well, you see wonderful men leading with wonderful women participating. And that's what President Bio has done with his 30%, but I know he's hungering for 50-50. So, joint partnership between men and women is an economic gift to the world. It'll make us richer. It'll make us stronger. It'll make us deliver on the aspirational opportunities that are there. And this is particularly important for Africa. As Africa enters into the age of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, technology alone will not save us. Technology without ethics can deepen inequality. Technology without accountability can centralize power. Technology without inclusion can leave millions behind. But technology guided by human values, guided by justice, guided by transparency, guided by inclusion, can become a powerful accelerator to development. And Africa, therefore, has a unique opportunity, not merely to adopt and adapt systems built elsewhere, but to shape distinctly African models of inclusive development, human-centered, community-rooted, and institutionally credible. And I believe women must stand at the center of building that future, not at the margins, not as participants only, but as architects, architects of policy, architects of enterprise, architects of peace, architects of innovation, architects of governance, architects of a more confident Africa. One of the proudest things that was entrusted to me was to try and build peace in our Commonwealth. And of the 56 countries, at least 26 at various times were in difficulties. And one of the most beautiful gifts God gave me was an opportunity to be with our people at their time of most need. And I remember coming here to Sierra Leone on the 25th of May of 2023 for the Peace Colloquium. It was my 38th wedding anniversary, and I don't know whether my husband has yet forgiven me. But to come and be with Commonwealth citizens as you made peace was a great gift. So women can be catalysts to help others to walk together. And to young women listening today, your leadership is not a favor to society. It is essential to society. And to the men in this room, gender equality is not a woman's issue. It is a national development strategy. No country succeeds. No country succeeds sustainably by excluding talent. And no leadership legacy endures unless it creates opportunity for those who come next. And that was what yesterday was all about, building our tomorrow. Because as the President made clear, as we get older, we are going to be dependent on these young people to look after us. And we need to train them well, otherwise we are going to have a miserable old age. So that is why partnership matters. Governments, regional institutions, the private sector, civil society, international partners, traditional leadership, young people, all of us. None of us can solve these challenges alone. But together, we can build systems that are more trusted, economies that are more inclusive, institutions that are more resilient. The future of Africa will not ultimately be decided in speeches. It will be decided by implementation. But whether we move from commitments to measurable action, from exclusion to participation, from fragility to confidence, I remain optimistic. Because when I travel across Africa, I do not see a continent of limitations. I see a continent of extraordinary possibility. I see young innovators, I see courageous women, I see reformers, I see to build nations worthy of the next generation. Africa's greatest resource is not beneath the ground. It is its people. That's our real gold, our real diamond, our real rubies, our real sapphires. Activity and determination will be Africa's greatest century lies ahead. My father was born in 1912. He was a great Pan-Africanist, born at the time when African liberation was a dream. It's now a reality. And I know as his daughter, he would be rejoicing and dancing because he would know our time has come. It is up to us, this generation, to deliver what the generations before us prayed for, thirsted for, hungered for, and never tasted. We must not just taste it, we must deliver it for everyone. And so I thank you, my dear brother and friend, President Leone, for making today and yesterday possible, but also changing not just this country, but helping to change this continent. And may God bless you, may God bless Sierra Leone, and may God bless Africa.
Thank you so much, Baroness Scotland. Thank you, thank you. I think it's important, as I lose a heel, I think it's important to just reiterate what she said, because it is a point that His Excellency President Bio is committed to, this understanding and realization that this nation's greatest resource is not what is beneath the soil. As much as we talk about our resources, as vital as they are to our economy, our greatest resource are the people. It is this human capital development that President Bio has committed himself to furthering here in Sierra Leone. Baroness Scotland, I think you said it so beautifully that leadership and good leadership displays competence, displays compassion and institutional discipline. And our next keynote speaker has done so over and over again. She's an embodiment of those qualities. She was Malawi's first female president. She was also their first female vice president. Before she got into politics, she founded numerous businesses and organizations. Dr. Julius Maada is a woman who is many things. She's a politician, she's an entrepreneur, she's an activist, and she's a philanthropist. And we are very fortunate to have her here. Please give her a very warm welcome to the stage.
Hello, is it working? Your Excellency, President Julius Maada, Your Excellency, and my beloved sister, First Lady, Fatima Bio, Your Excellency, Baroness Scotland, the first woman to head the Commonwealth, Your Majesty,
the King of Wari, my beloved King, Vice President, Cabinet Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, having listened to a well-written and researched speech from Baroness Scotland, I think they invited me to come and share my experience. I'm 76 years old, and I think there are so many here who can benefit from my experience along the way. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have learned that to be a leader, particularly of a nation, I don't know how many in this room have been president, so I can have the privilege of saying what you don't know about, is that you need wisdom. And wisdom is not found in any textbook. You can have all manner of academic credentials, but at the end of the day, you need wisdom. And wisdom comes from God alone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my president and happy birthday. And I am so proud to be back to Sierra Leone. God has given me the opportunity to see those that get into leadership for the power and those that get into leadership to serve. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I heard a lot of President Bio's achievements yesterday, but that's not how I got to know him. I have been very angry about how our girls are treated in the Middle East. There are countries on this continent where they receive 90, 100 bodies a year because our girls are being abused and tortured and they are enslaved in the Middle East. Some countries like Dubai, they have now banned what they call kafala, where when you get this innocent girl from Africa, she is nothing but a slave. She can't even leave and go back home. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that's when I first heard about President Bio, because he's one of the few leaders on the African continent who raised his voice to say, no, it's not acceptable for our girls to suffer like that. Women started talking even at the African Union about one President Bio who is not afraid to offend his friends, to raise issues that they don't want to talk about. And we gathered and we mobilized ourselves and we decided that we're going to travel to Sierra Leone to come and honor President Bio. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so I got to the airport and got down. Then I got on the boat. And then I didn't know where I was going. I said, we are on the boat to go where now? And they said, no, that's how you get to the mainland. This time around, President, it wasn't so bad. I was very comfortable on the boat coming here. But the only problem that you may wish to sort out is that the life jackets couldn't fit. I asked my entourage, you are in life jackets, meaning that you can get to Malawi without me? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those who have been given the wisdom by God to lead their nations, like our president here, have also got the rare gift of mobilizing otherwise people. Mr. President, maybe you don't know this, I'm busier than I have ever been. I've just finished a 6-nation tour. I am on great demand. So this me, takes me, carries me, anywhere that I want to go. President Mandela one time at Kasani said, the beauty is that when you also get to age 70 and beyond, you can say anything. Because they will say, who said that, Joyce Maada? Senior citizen. Your Excellency, that 6-tour nation trip that I made, one of the places I went was Nigeria. The government of Nigeria invited me to go and give a speech on the commemoration of the death of General Maada Mohammed, one of the leaders on this continent, who came into office and didn't stay long because he was assassinated. But the things that he initiated in that 12 months, in that year, have had lasting effect on the country called Nigeria. So they wanted me to go and speak. Sometimes I think to myself, I don't know how I get from West Africa to North Africa to everywhere to speak. But anyway, while I was in Nigeria, His Majesty the King heard that I'm in Abuja. Oh, I had never met this king before. In fact, I thought he was as old as the elders at the back. I didn't know he was such a young, handsome king. Oh, did that be my son? They told me he's looking for you. He wants you to go to Wari. He wants you to interact with women of his kingdom. I said, I don't know how to get to Wari. And where, by the way, where is Wari? And finally he said, tell her I'm sending her a private jet. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I ended up in Wari. I don't know about other kings, but this is a king that has put his people at the center stage. This is a king who cares about their livelihood. This is a king who would stay in the state house, in the palace, the great palace, and just enjoy himself. And nobody would ask him. After all, he inherited the position. But what he has done, I invite some of you to make the effort to go and visit. So I got to the kingdom of Wari. Now I want to agree with my sister, Baroness, Scotland. We dance the same music, regardless of where you are. Even the Caribbeans come and dance, and they follow the beat. I am with no intention of offending those that are not African. When they dance, I get worried because their steps and their rhythm don't go together. But here we were, getting out of the plane in Wari. There are drums at the airport. I forget I'm guest of honor. I'm already on the ground. I'm dancing all over the ground. We are all Africans. I don't know who divided us. We were supposed to be one country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, President Biya has a wife. And anybody who is a foreigner coming in for the first time and listens to the first lady of this country talking, you can't act that out. You are either born an advocate, somebody who cares, who is generous, but you can't act that out. I watched that speech and I listened very carefully. And she even said, where are my children? And I turned and they were actually sitting there. You know, people act that out. For people to just see, to think there's a first lady who is working. But don't worry, my sister. People who go out, flat out, working like that, sometimes don't get the support. But you know what? The greatest support you have is your husband. I have not heard many presidents mention their wife in their speech, as if we don't exist. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we as Africans have been very lucky. We have been very lucky that the leadership of women is not beginning now. Leadership of women is even in our history books. And you know what? They even say that we were delayed by those that colonized us. We were already ruling our nations. Go and find out about the Asentao of Uganda. And even here in Sierra Leone, there were powerful women who stood up for the rights of women and children. When they came and colonized us, they didn't know what to do with us. So they left us aside. And so our progress delayed. The good news is that when our brothers on the continent started fighting for freedom, self-rule, we stood to the occasion. So we know there are women like Winnie Mandela, Albertina Sisulu, Rose Chiwambo of Malawi. I can go across the whole continent, naming them one after another, who did a lot, who realized that they can stand up side by side with their brothers. Why is this important for me to talk about? I say this because you, our men, you, our brothers, have not struggled to allow us to participate in leadership. Why? Because you were born watching that. You saw our Centaur, you saw women kings, you saw women tables participating in leadership. I don't know where we lost it, but I'm not going to stand here and blame our brothers because I think they've gone a very long way. I am one woman here who can tell you for sure that there is no time during my leadership when I can say men did not support me. In fact, it is my fellow women who ran me down. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so we have a president who has the interest of these people at heart, particularly what we heard yesterday about young people. I don't know if you are following the news. Our children are leaving their nations to go look for green pastures, and they are meeting untold misery through acts of xenophobia. And if we begin to hide and not talk about it, then we are failing our people. I have nothing to lose. I'm not a president, so I can say whatever I want. It's not fair what our children are going through. But what I have always said is that our presidents then should rise and create opportunities in their countries so that their young men and women don't have to leave their soil to go anywhere else. And yesterday we heard one story after another. The chief minister cited examples of what President Bill has done to make sure that he empowers those that didn't have any hope. And therefore, that's the direction we must go. Those of us across the continent, and I'm calling upon my brothers and sisters, that they should know that it is important to create opportunities for our people on the ground so that our children don't go and get abused anywhere else. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are still young people in the room. What we saw yesterday is not happening across the continent. Young people are being abducted and killed just by raising their voice. There was one little young man yesterday who stood up and said, "Mr. President, I want to be president." I said, "Is he out of his mind?" In other places, you can't even say that. Women are being beaten, stripped naked, just by trying to seek elected office. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so here we are with a president who loves his people, who has put social issues at the center. Education, health. I don't know food security as well. I don't know if there's any country, any citizenry that will support you when they are going to bed without food. And Mr. President, I just want to thank God for your leadership. And I want to thank all those that are standing with you and by you and working with you. As far as women are concerned, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must stop women in this room that are African. Stop glorifying what lies they say about us. Oh, Africa is a dark continent. And oh, Africa has gone. And oh, Africa hasn't done this, that, and the next. As far as leadership is concerned, we have done better than most continents. In fact, I don't know if you heard this, some with 250 years, democracies, they haven't taken one single woman to State House up to now. They're still trying. We have 7. Ndaitwa, president of Namibia, is female president number 8, number 7 on the continent of Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that's not any achievement. Somebody was telling me, oh, our country, we just elected a vice president. It's great news. I said, it's great news. A vice president. I was president in 2009. Where I come from in Africa, vice presidents are 2 a penny. You can have him any day. We are talking about presidents leading the nation. So don't begin to lecture to us about democracy and about what we should do when we have achieved better than you. Don't. Some lady who lives in Nigeria, but grew up in Nigeria, but lives in the States. Arikana Hombori had organized an event to honor me and Ellen Serif, 2015. And we were in Washington, D.C. And she invited a lot of African women, including this lady. And she raised her hand, she said, Madam Jospin, advise me, what can I do? I go back and forth to my country, and the women are so passive. I tell them, let's rise, let's march. They don't want to do that. I'm very frustrated. I said, wait. In this country where you live, how many women are in parliament? 18%. I said, you know, where I come from, where you come from, Rwanda has 63% of women in parliament, the highest in the world. I said, in this country where you live, how many presidents have been in State House? She says, not yet. I think just one vice president. I said, hey, where we come from, we have got 7. So what we need to do is not to rejoice that we have arrived, but to say there's so much work to be done, as Baroness Scotland has said, but also to take credit for what we have been able to achieve with the help of our brothers. And the approach, my dear leaders in the room, is not going to be confrontational, to confront our men, to fight with our men. We are going to do what African women know best how to do. We are master negotiators. Maybe you don't know, but I know. Even my husband knows that I can fix him and do what I want, because I know how to negotiate without making him feel small. So the whole idea of moving, marching on the street, calling presidents woman of names, doesn't work. My advice to you, my fellow women, we have not turned west. We must achieve more. But for us to do that, we must be dignified. We must be mature about our approach. Because there's an African leader that you are going to meet, and he listen to you if you call him names. In Malawi, the law says, no president shall appoint less than 40% women in the cabinet and other positions in government. So we had just had an election that year, and he decided he was going to cheat us. So he appointed 35%. And I just heard that women are dancing on the road. They are marching to parliament to deliver a petition. And I always take advantage of the privilege I have to have been a leader of a nation that I can phone any president, anytime. So I picked the phone. I said, Mr. President, I hope you know what's going on. Women are marching on the road. They are going to parliament to deliver a petition because of what you've done. He says to me, what have I done? As if he didn't know. I said, you've broken the law. I've broken the law. So, State House was this side, and the Parliament was the opposite direction. So they were dancing, going this way. He said to me, where are they at? I said, midway going to Parliament. He says, but I'm in State House. They are lost. So I called my friends immediately. I said, quick, you are lost. He's in State House. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if you shout at our men with their ego, and that we know, and patriarchy, they'll just ignore you. They will not even want to see you. Those of you who are activists in the room, learn the game. Be in a position where, when you are raising issues, they will say, is Joyce Maada with the women? Yes, tell Joyce Maada to come. Because he knows you will tell him just sense, without any emotions, without any antagonism. So they went back and made the so-called president, and in a few week or two, he appointed 42% women to cabinet and 50-50 judges. So it is how you are going to approach the issues. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, somebody has said, Colonization did not bring female leadership. It interrupted it. And I want to believe that. So we are not going to wait for somebody to tell us how to achieve gender equality. Just by engaging our men and talking to them and telling them how important it is. Even African Union has achieved parity, 50-50. And most presidents on the continent are appointing 50-50 women. And I saw young people yesterday, from chief minister to all that, I don't think they had to go and fight President Bio in order to be appointed. We must engage our men and talk to them with respect. We must respect one another. We don't have anything to lose. We shall, at the end of the day, be the winners. I have asked, why is it that 100 million girls are not in school? You go in our capitals on the continent, they are selling tomatoes and mangoes, and so their brothers are in class. That must change. And our leaders must help us achieve that. Get as many girls as possible to school. I have believed and I have learned that economic empowerment of women is the key to social entrepreneurship. So for me in Malawi, all those of us who were ministers, who were in business and went into politics, 5 of us went to become ministers of women and children, and me all the way to State House. So economic empowerment of women is a game changer. You have to run businesses. You have to make money. And let nobody tell you that money is evil, because it is not. It allows you to do good things. I went to church and I don't know what part of the Bible says. There was a rich man and a poor man, and the rich man died and went to hell and was crying with the poorest to come and drop water on his tongue because he was burning to death. When I finished singing that song, I stood up, I said, excuse me. I was born in this village, and you know I came from a very humble background. But I'm rich today. I'm not even ashamed to say that. And I feed 10,000 children a day. And I send 3,000 girls to school. If I was poor, would I do that? Oh, no. I said, yes. Let's make most of you in this church today self-reliant. As I'm talking now, I'm busy funding their projects in order for them to have money at household table. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no way women are going to get leadership without being appointed. And those of us who are going to become leaders, the first thing I did was to appoint my fellow women to positions of leadership. It was the first time Malawi had a Chief Justice who was a woman. The first time Malawi had a Solicitor General, the Commissioner for Human Rights, the Chief Secretary of Government, I think the equivalent of the Chief Minister. Sometimes we called ourselves to discuss matters of state, and it was the three of us, Chief Justice, Chief Secretary, and me, having a cup of tea, discussing Malawi. It can be done. We must take advantage of those positions when we are appointed to appoint fellow women. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting towards the age, and I want you to imagine this. Close your eyes and imagine that when I became president in 2012, in the southern part of Africa, SADC, one president heads the SADC for a year. So that year, President Sata of Zambia is the one who mentioned my name. Isn't it time for us to have a female leader to chair SADC? The only woman in the room who was representing her boss, who had gone to Rupert Marikana or something like that, is the one who stood and said, no, it's not yet time for women to lead. So President Sata says, oh, remind us, which country are you president? You. She started crying. I'll tell my president that you did this, that to me. I became chair of SADC. The moment I became chair of SADC, the SADC secretariat were looking for an executive secretary. And I told the secretariat find a woman. And they found Dr. Tax from Tanzania. The law of SADC says when somebody wins that interview, passes that interview, and is appointed executive secretary, she must take oath. And she or he must take oath at the SADC summit. So that SADC summit was being hosted by the first woman chair of SADC in Malawi. I said, we are going to have a swearing ceremony. So I called this lady to come to the podium. And when she came to the podium, the law of SADC says it is the Chief Justice who will administer that oath, and it was a woman that she had just appointed in Malawi as Chief Justice. So she came to the podium. And so now it is the three of us. But it is also common practice that when the chair of the African Union is in the room and that function is taking place, she must come to the podium. My 15 brothers leading their nations in the SADC sat there watching us, 4 women, conduct matters of our region and cheering us non-stop. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that photo, you can find it on the internet. But why I'm saying this now is to encourage President Bill. Don't look back. Keep going. We can see what you're doing. And we women are prepared to work with you and to claim our place at the table. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, 4 women in the region conducting matters of SADC, we can do it again and again. May God bless you.
I thought we were clapping for her. Let's put our hands together properly for her. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed was a very, very powerful statement. Deep words, motherly advice, challenging every aspect of the African continent, bringing us out with our dignity and helping us to approach men, to approach leaders, both men and women, with respect and maturity. Thank you very much, ma'am. Another round of applause. And you did say that at this stage of your life, you can say anything to anybody. And I agree with you. Thank you. That's my uncle who was 70. I said, what are the signs that will tell me that I'm getting old so I know quickly? And he told me there are 3 signs. I said, okay, sir, can you tell me? He said, the first sign is that you begin to forget a lot of things. So I wrote it down. Memory loss. So I asked him, I said, sir, what are the other 2? And he looked me straight in the eye and said, my son, honestly, I have forgotten. So I'm still waiting now for the other 2 signs. But may I also specially appreciate a few others who have joined the Olu of Ori. I'm told that he travels traditionally with very important chiefs. We have with him Chief Eugene Ikomi, the Olulaye of Ori Kingdom. Please put your hands together for him. We have also Chief Omolobi Wumi, I hope I got that correct, the Omota Mudei of Warri Kingdom. Please put your hands together for him. And we have also Chief Walter Aboro, the Ose Omote of Warri Kingdom. Please put your hands together for him. And we have with them the Special Advisor to the Delta State Governor on Community Development, Dr. Toyin Agbulaya, JP. Thank you very much. We are honored to have you. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking the message into a panel discussion. And our panelists are eventually ready. As today, we stand before a bitter contrast of riches and poverty, the majority of young led by tired, and a continent taught by the world that taught the world civilization, yet still waiting and seeking validation from the same world that once waited for it to prove that it was human. Our panel is one that is rich. The first on that list, ladies and gentlemen, is a man with over 30 years experience in economic development, one who had advised on the executive board of the World Bank, was a master of economic policy management and a master of public policy. May I invite on the panel the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Sheikh Ahmed Fantamadi Bangora. Please put your hands together for him. Also on this panel, we have a seasoned organizational leader with passion for doing results-oriented and growing issues, first woman and first Botswana woman to serve as an MD of a diamond mining company in Botswana, the Lucara Diamond Corporation. He's a master in strategic management and a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. Let's welcome the Managing Director of Lucara Diamonds Botswana, Madam Nassim B. Larry. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you very much. Also on this list is one who was named among the most impactful World Fathers of 2023, the Humanitarian World Father of the Year by Pleasure Magazine, was also named the Leadership and Community Development Award of the 14th African Achievers Award, also specially recognized as the 100 most reputable Africans by the poll by RDI, and one of the most reputable Africans for the year 2025. And in 2025, again, he was also given the African Leadership Excellence Award, a champion of African unity and economic empowerment. I put this as a background because we'll be talking about leadership. May I therefore invite His Royal Majesty Ogiame Aturashid III, CFR, Yono Foreign Kingdom in Delta State. Please put your hands together for him. And to help us navigate this is the pilot of tourism. She understands tourism. She's not just in the corridor of power. The United States major tabloid described her as the corridor of power. She's not a tourism driver. She's the map, the architect, the policy framework, and the evidence that tourism, and Sierra Leone indeed, can be visited by the world. May I therefore invite the Minister of Tourism, Republic of Sierra Leone, Mrs. Nabila Farida Tunis. Please put your hands together for her. She's of course here, and she will champion the affairs of this panel for the next 15 minutes or thereabout. Once again, let's appreciate them with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, our MC, Your Excellency, sir, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As has been stated earlier, we meet at a defining moment for Africa and indeed the world. And we've heard previous speakers mention where we are and the challenges that we do have and the challenges we face and what needs to be done to address those challenges. But again, with all the shocks, with all the disruptions, history reminds us that moments like these, moments of uncertainty, it often becomes the breeding ground for reinvention. And so for Africa, it's not simply a governance conversation, it's a leadership moment. And the question before us is no longer whether Africa has potential, it's whether we're prepared to lead differently, with courage strong enough to confront difficult realities, accountability deep enough to rebuild public trust, and innovation bold enough to shape our own future. In Sierra Leone, we have witnessed how purposeful leadership can reposition national ambition. And under the leadership of His Excellency the President, governance has increasingly been framed around human capital development, institutional reform, inclusion, innovation, and economic diversification. Now, whether it's through investment in education, expanding opportunities for women and young people, or elevating sectors such as tourism and the creative economy as drivers of growth, the emphasis has been on transforming potential into productivity and aspiration into measurable national progress. Your Excellency, sir, I recall vividly when seeking guidance from you when I assumed the responsibility for tourism and culture. Your message was simple, yet deeply profound. Be innovative and think outside the box. That instruction resonates deeply because it captures the kind of leadership that Africa requires today. Leadership that is bold enough to challenge convention, adaptive enough to embrace change, and visionary enough to unlock new possibilities. So we are privileged, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to have with us a distinguished panel whose collective experience spans governance, business, and traditional leadership. And as you've heard, we are going to have an engaging moment with our esteemed panelists. So the first question I'd like to pose to our panelists, and I'll start with our unruffled and grounded Minister of Finance, a person who has earned the recognition as one of the country's most effective economic managers, steering the nation through periods of significant global. I ask you in 1 minute, when you hear the phrase reimagining African leadership, what does it mean to you in the context of today's global uncertainties?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, Your Excellency, Your Highness, Your Majesty, Excellencies, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. Quite a very solid topic in my view. I think an embodiment of what we face these days, where we are challenged as leaders to be very thoughtful, be courageous, open to our people, be accountable, but like you said, think outside the box to be able to respond to most of the challenges that the people have been looking forward to when you are appointed to lead them. And I will give an example. In Africa, what we need leaders who confront the challenges of the continent. And you demonstrate it from your own responsibility given in your own country. And in Sierra Leone, I'll give an example to my own leader, who in 2018, when he was elected and took the responsibility given to him by the people to shape this country, he inherited a very difficult economy. And with all the numbers on the macro side, we are not looking good, but also even poverty numbers were very difficult. And some of the questions that I think people will ask, especially on the bold decision he took on education. When he took the decision on education, he was actually questioned or doubted by the press and raising agencies, because they were questioning the fiscal sense that the decision made, that you may not be able to handle it. But he said that to lead a nation, the value is in its people and the quality of the people who make up that nation. And it starts right at the cradle of a given individual who must be educated and taken through the value chain of education. But they asked him, will you be able to afford it? That was a fiscal orthodoxy, that you can't handle it because your budget was not good. You're supposed to focus on addressing deficits. Well, he knew that deficit is just a number. But if you believe that there are quality human beings in your country, they are educated, healthy, well-fed, they may be able to innovate around the problems you have. But it's a decision you make today, because that decision, the result of it, only comes years later, maybe a generation later. That's the courage that I think we need within the continent. Leaders who don't just look at short-term results when they have maybe 5 or 10 years in office, but can take decisions that are going to shape the nation into the future. Now, I think that's where I see reimagining the continent in the current context really is. It's just that one example. But there are many other examples I can give you where he is led in that way. In the energy space, we are trying to solve our energy problem. A foundational infrastructure decisions are to be made. 65 years on, it is said that we don't have grid infrastructure in the country. 65 years on, our electricity infrastructure is weak. What did he do? When he met the MCC in the US, they asked him, what do you want to do with the resources American government will give to you? He said, I only need to solve energy. And say, why? He said, because that's the foundational infrastructure we need to transform a nation, whether for industry, for education, for healthcare, and the like. That's bold decision. That's courageous decision. That's what he did, just one area. And he did it not only for infrastructure. When they asked him as well, he did a compact for $2.2 billion worth. Now, do you have all the money today? No. But he said we can innovate around how we claw in our own resources with what can be generated from other private partners. That's the courage we need. You innovate around, but you think not for today, you think for the future. So in Africa, that's kind of leadership we need, where we are really not thinking just about ourselves. If we pull all the continent together, leaders thinking in this way, then we have a nation, we have a whole continent to fix under difficult circumstances. Not the boldness that is required at this point in time.
So much, Mr. Minister of Finance. I'll ask you to hold that thought because I will come back to you. I do know that there's a lot to speak about our president's bold leadership. But let me come to you, Madam Naseem Lahi. I am aware that you've been managing an institution that is not really known, to have women at that managerial position. And I would really like to ask you, from a business perspective, how important are trust, accountability, and ethical leadership to Africa's competitiveness globally?
Thank you for the question, Your Excellency. It's an honor to be here. Madam First Lady, total honor to be here, and happy birthday to both of you. I heard it was both your birthdays yesterday. I'd like to say all protocol observed, but I'd like to recognize the giants I see on my right hand side. You have paved the way forward for us women in the industry and in Africa. I think from my perspective, there's a lot to say, but I'd like to start off with the jollof wars. Your Majesty, allow me to go there first because the MC talked about cooking and the fire is up. Please turn it down because I don't think rice cooks very well in this heat. I totally agree with you that your jollof is the best. But just hang on. Still coming back to Sierra Leone. Your plantain is the best I've ever tasted in this world. Yeah, so I think from my perspective, and I'll talk personally about me and take it to Africa, is back to a discussion that we had, as the minister spoke, the Honorable Minister, for us, when we're leading, it's about leading with purpose. And I'm a woman that has grown up in a country with so many great regulations. The first female woman to run the biggest sector in Botswana was Machepe, who ran the mining sector. 50 years or 60 years this year, we still have the same problem. So something has not been done well. So when we run with purpose, and I always say I lead with purpose and silent impact, sustainable impact. It's about what you do. You don't need the accolades. You need to understand that sustainable impact needs to come in forward, right? So I think for me, there's a lot of discussion around courage, to be bold. That's what I've picked up in my leadership space, is that being the woman, until today, I'm the only female in the room. Basic thing like a toilet at the mining sector. When I joined, the toilets were locked. We've now opened them, right? So there's a lot that we need to do. And I talk from, I'll say from a country of privilege, and yet we haven't got it right because the impact was not sustainable. So when we lead, we need to lead with purpose, with impact, sustainable impact. Courage, innovation is great, but if you don't have courage and you're not fearless, that is a problem. You need to have courage and you need to have fearless combined. And then the word that keeps coming up is generous. When you put out your leadership there, it needs to be generous. So I talk about being fearless and no boundaries. You know, all the women here, they've heard the word no. I've heard the word no. And for all the men and women in this room, tell a woman no, and what happens? She conquers the world. So please go on and say no, because she will conquer the world. So I think for me, that is the key things in terms of just running the infrastructures that I work in. And for me, you know, when I joined the industry, Botswana was at its 50 years of diamond mining. The government did really well. But what I did well with my team is that we took the diamonds to the community. We empowered the communities. We didn't leave anyone behind. Because in mining, we did really well. From a downstream perspective, we didn't get it right. Again, impact, sustainable impact is very important. And what I did was stir up the industry. Because now, I mean, 50 years down the line, I can't say I'm young. I'm hitting the fifth floor right now, but I'm youthful by mind. What I do think is that I shook up the industry in Botswana. And people are seeing things. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about women empowerment a bit. I know you've given me 1 minute. And for those who know me, I talk a lot. So please just keep me in check here. You know, from a women empowerment perspective, I'm still the first, which is a lonely space, as Honorable Scotland mentioned. Very, very lonely, but it should never be there. What we have done is we have deliberately brought in women to the helm. It's deliberate. It takes another woman to bring another woman on the helm, and progressive men as well. We never leave anyone behind. What we've done is we've also, Your Excellency, brought up our numbers from literally 1 digit to 2 digit being 30%. Double the industry practice in the world. Imagine how long mining has been going along. We have brought money to the never saw before. If it wasn't through government, private sector never brought it through to the front. We are not just leading a company, we are leading communities, we are leading the youth, and who advocate for us. So as we go out there, we're teaching the youth how to run companies. And it's at the helm of a woman. And you know, they always say charity begins at home. That's what is happening. We have emotional EQ. We have strong EQ as women. We have charitable minds, and we take along. You know, they always say train a man. And who are you training? Just the man. You train a woman, you're training a community and a nation. In Botswana, we have a saying, I won't say it in Setswana, but it's put a woman at the forefront. She's the pillar of the nation. And that's what I see with many female-run organizations and countries. No disrespect to you, sir. You've done really, really well. And through the 2 days, I've seen that. But I think, you know, for me, if I were just to summarize what you've asked me, transparency is very important. But aside from this transparency, it's how you lead. You have to have courage, you have to be fearless about it, and you have no boundaries, and the impact needs to be sustainable. You don't have to talk about it, the impact will talk about it.
Thank you very much for that perspective. And again, I have to say that if you were in Sierra Leone, it would be a different story, because you've heard how much effort our president has made towards empowering women and young girls. So probably you should start thinking of coming to Sierra Leone and experiencing what it's like to have the right leadership that grants a productive space to every woman. Now, it's my pleasure to turn this conversation to hear a perspective who brings in a unique and deeply influential aspect that bridges tradition and modern leadership. Your Majesty, Ogiami Atuwase III, has emerged as one of Africa's most respected contemporary traditional rulers. You're redefining what cultural leadership means, and you're widely admired for your intellect. And I heard previous speakers mention how passionate you are about young people and how much of a mixer you are. Now, Your Majesty, traditional institutions continue to shape values and identity across Africa. What role should value-based leadership play in redefining Africa's future?
Thank you. Your Excellency, the First Lady, can I begin? I know I have 1 minute. I want to officially withdraw myself from the Jollof Wars completely. I think we came to a truce last night. where Her Excellency the First Lady so graciously established certain historical facts. And I think it's safe to conclude that what the Americans have done with the hamburger, they did not create it. Nigerians did not create jollof rice. We just added our own twist to it. So I'm just going to leave it there and let that be that way it concerns the jollof wars. And to go into what you just asked, one thing I have observed since I was very young, obviously growing up in a traditional setting, my father he sat on his throne for 28 years. And I want to use Nigeria as an example of what I'm trying to describe for Africa. Because the primary way in which we see leadership on this continent is, if you want to say it's at a cellular level, is at the home, and traditionally the man is the head of the home. And you see what happens when you step out of the home in a society where, in a community where there is a leader of that community, probably a king, a chief, and what the people see from a very young age, values and traditions that have carried over centuries. We're very visual people, very, very visual. And I dare say that even in the way we're learning with each year and each decade going by, the way we have seen kings and chiefs run society, it percolates and it translates, or it almost wants to inform the way the head of the country would want to run his country. Yes, there are laws, but you've been informed in the way you see your king do is how you would want to do. Sometimes you may want to do it a bit strong, but where there are laws, you are a bit restrained. So I think it's very important that when people see that at the traditional level, which is where I sit, where they see that even at that cellular level, the traditional ruler is trying to say, let us do things differently. It has such a powerful ripple effect, because everybody's going to point and say, this is where we get our identity from. This is where we get our traditional values from. And I'm still being a bit diplomatic in the way I'm answering this question. But when the source, as it were, is beaming a different type of signal, it is going to resonate. It is going to percolate. That's what has informed us in my situation for almost 600 years. But now the source is now beaming out a different signal. It may take time, but people are going to pay attention and see, can this be sustained? And if it is successfully sustained at that cellular traditional level, there will be less resistance when you are trying to implement it going up the chain.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Majesty, I really don't want us to go into the jollof rice discussion. But again, what we're going to do to resolve this matter, on the 2nd, from the 2nd to the 4th of December, Sierra Leone will be hosting the 3rd African Gastronomy Forum in collaboration with UN Tourism. And what we're proposing is to have a unity jollof. So it will be a mixture of flavors. And I feel that would be a really good platform for us to also try to reimagine how we want Africa to be placed competitively, so it could meet the demands of the global realities and also prepare our young people. But you mentioned something earlier on, and I grabbed a couple of points from the previous speakers. I would like to know, what are your views about having certain demographics? Because most times we focus on young people. The age bracket, I think it's from 17 to 35. But what are your views about bringing in much younger people from age 5 upwards? What do you think about it?
There is an image that comes to mind when I think about whether or not we're operating at maximum capacity. I have heard repeatedly since I was in college, I heard it a lot in the United States, that as human beings, we only really use a third of the capacity of our brains. A third. And if man has achieved all that man has achieved in 7,000 years of recorded history, look at what we've achieved with using a third of our brain. It implies that if we were operating at 100% of our brain capacity, we would probably be moving like gods on this planet. I want to draw that analogy to say that the way we've been operating with a third of our brain capacity collectively as human beings has been led or dominated by male energy. So if we were to allow women come in, quote unquote, 2/3 of brain capacity, not substituting one for another, but you are operating at your maximum capacity here in this third. Let them come in and operate, contribute their own third. And then the final third, be it the young people, don't even put a limit to their age, 17 to 35. Whatever they feel they want to add, give them that platform, and perhaps that may increase our collective capacity. Perhaps. That's just an analogy that comes to mind. And I don't know if that does well to answer your question.
Certainly they do. And what you're talking about again is identity. We need that identity as African people to really shape our future. But let me come to you, and thank you very much for those very insightful and comments that you have made earlier. Thank you for the work that you do, Your Majesty. Let me turn this question to you, Madam Nassim Lahri. You spoke about bold leadership. You spoke about some of the inhibitions you face, being a woman in a very unusual space. Do you really think that the measures you have applied are working? And if they're not working, what sort of support do you think you would need to ensure that you have a complete turnaround in the shortest possible time?
Thank you for the question. I've shaken up the industry in Botswana, mining industry. When I got out in 50 years in the mining industry, we didn't have toilets for ladies. The first thing I did was open the toilets because they were there, they were just not opened. Looked at PPE for women. Basic things like protective gear for women in the mining industry. Never taken care of. We made that available. We went out to specifically recruit women in the industry. And I say specifically, we didn't go out there and say, you apply, you apply. The fact that they saw a woman, a Motswana woman at the helm, they came to the forefront because they saw hope, which they never saw. Then what we did after that was, we opened up, we have really good laws in Botswana. But again, it's not about the governments. It's about what we do to support the government infrastructure. I brought 6 months maternity leave. Oh my God, it was such a war with my board. But the one thing to realize is that, with the bottom line, if you have a productive workforce, you will automatically make up the revenue that you've lost. And we saw that with the 6 months maternity. But I don't leave anyone. Hello? And I need to carry my son forward as well, including my daughter. We gave them paternity leave. For as long as you can prove that's your child, we were able to give them paternity leave. So there's a lot that we've changed and has been sustainable. So we've changed the industry in a lot of things. It's unfortunate that it's come 50 years later, but we have. One of the things that I'm not proud of, that's coming back to what would we do differently, is gender-based violence. The highest rate in the world is in Botswana. We have double-digit numbers sitting at literally 63%, where the average is 27% in the world. Botswana is extremely high. I set up a gender-based violence fund similar to what you would call a sovereign fund, but for gender-based violence. We've done that. We've collected a lot of companies collectively coming in to set up that fund, a basic thing like gender-based violence. What I found really, really great was that the community leaders, you lead by example. In Botswana, if our community leaders do the wrong, everybody else follows. And we started with our community leaders, where we started addressing gender-based violence, making sure they take the story to the people. And with the community, we realized that. And now what we've done is well with the communities. We work with the communities a lot, but the fact that they have the power to lead the country, do a lot of community projects with our community leaders. So we carry them along. We take them along, found that, basic thing like women hygiene products, never available to young girls, used to miss 7 days or to 10 days a month of school. How equal is the environment if you let a girl miss 10 days? The funding that we've made about now girls are able to go to school. A basic thing like sanitary pads. We've made that available. It's through communities. And again, talking to what His Excellency said yesterday, it's taboo to talk a period. No longer taboo in our community meetings. It's now happening. They're talking about it. They're talking about gender-based violence. Sometimes the GBV aspect is cultural. And we've made sure that it's no longer culture. To treat a woman with respect is important. And the norm that you've seen before is not the norm. So we're using our community leaders to actually get to us. It took us a while to get there, but we've now started using our community leaders, including business. For one thing, what we're doing as well is, in as much as we're mining the resource, we're also mining the talent of our people and mining them in the right manner. A lot of people have told us, and I'm sure a lot of you growing up, if you don't have a degree, you're no one. But we've tapped into talent that is beyond mining. The life of mines are finite. The resource will end. People don't end. They will live for a long period of time. But in saying that, we have made it accessible to be a sportswoman, a sportsman. We're sponsoring sportswomen and sportsmen. You've seen us win the 4x400, very proud. We have world champions holding the gold in Africa, or North Africa, but in Botswana, Southern Africa, we don't have a lot of golds. So we're proud of our gold medalists. I took them through that process of training them. You will not see our company brand there, but we took them because the impact is big. They will carry our name for time immemorial. And for me, that silent impact and sustainable impact is very important. We also look at downstream activities. I know I don't have a lot of time, so I won't carry that forward. But we make sure that beyond mining, we have sustainable communities. We do farming. What do miners know about farming? But we do that too. But it's through our communities. That's how we empower the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasreen, Larry, for those perspectives. And speaking about having that inclusive approach is really important, because when you bring everyone on board, you definitely get a greater support from the people themselves. And it's also a mechanism that you use to identify talent and also see how that can be used in a very productive manner. But to you, Mr. Minister, what do you really think about her perspectives, and how do you think really that accountability in Africa can be transformed into something that is embedded within our behavior? It's more or less focusing on the leadership. You have a leadership that is accountable. Now, how can that really be drilled down to all levels so that it certainly underpins what the leadership has already laid down as more or less the guiding principle? Over to you, Mr. Minister.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of being accountable, which in Africa these days, all citizens in every country, and in the tenets that we try to uphold, they look up to their leaders to stay up to the democratic, let me just start from there, the democratic responsibility that you take up. That's the first thing. And so in democracy, accountability is the watchword. Yeah, because that's where the responsibility lies. And to be accountable is you stay with the rules of the game. Okay, rules of the game. In the sense that there will be elections. That's one. You stick to the rules of the elections. That's two. And second, you gotta be bold in ensuring that in the process of leading, when they've actually appointed you, you must be open to ensure that you can be critiqued. Yeah, you have to be accountable. Now, in our country, the press is deemed most trusted to be able to sell or look at a leader through a lens, because they are deemed to be a false estate. They are deemed not to be taking sides, although in modern days they do take sides, but generally you expect them to be the lens. In this country, for example, we had a law that's called libel law, right? It's been there, and it was a means to coerce the voice of those who will speak freely. Now, it's the same like she said, but also equally, women as well. So we've passed a law that really tried to address that. To say, well, you can speak freely, you can critique freely. And I followed yesterday when a young gentleman said he wants to be a leader, he wants to be a president. Well, it was just to say, you can say that in this country, but as long as we know that you're speaking freely, and you have a process of doing that and exercise that right when the time comes. That's one. The other aspect has to do with women. Generally in the continent, and I actually agree with most of the way the forces that you've taken in the company. Generally in Africa, the women's space is being a space that has been a struggle to open up. In this country, I think that's a wild space that we have opened up with boldness, right? Where whether it's the laws that have been passed to open space for women, participation, or specific spaces in the law where ideas and initiatives are developed by the whole issue of answer of our girls, but also talking about women's and girls' health. These are decisions that are not easy or difficult to imbibe in our society. What has happened in our society is that we've opened that up. And I think other nations should be able to learn from that and be able to be bold. Even in the West, we know how long it took them to be able to ensure that women even participated in elections or do participate in different aspects of leading their nations. There will be heavy discrimination in the West on even wages. In our society, we don't have those kind of problems, right? That's this very inclusive society. It is a function of our, and so we should learn to start respecting the way our leaders are opening space for us, whether irrespective of whether you're a male or a female. And it's happening both in education, but also now the initiative that we are bringing up to allow full participation in these are values in our system that I think I resonate with the way you've been addressing inclusivity and participation of ladies or gender in a sector that I believe was purely just for men. So I'm saying this just to be able to bring it back into our own society, that I do resonate with the fact that to be accountable and to be inclusive, there are bold actions that you need to take, which are not comfortable actions by leaders. They may be costly, but that's how you start opening up society. Right? So I think in Sierra Leone, that's what we are exhibiting.
Exactly.
I believe that's what's emulating in the continent that wants to make progress.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. And to the audience now, we have heard from the conversation different perspectives about leadership, about innovation, about accountability, and what leaders need to do to ensure that Africa takes that trajectory that was to compete. Now, we are aware that the quality of leadership is important. And as we've all heard from different perspectives again, to ensure that we take that bold step, not just based on the leadership we have, but taking the space that the leadership has given us to excel. And therefore, we realize that it requires a lot more than ambition. It demands courage in very difficult circumstances. It also demands wisdom. But it also demands that collective respect and responsibility and focus. So as we close this panel for this afternoon, I'd like to really thank the panelists for sharing their insights with us. Unfortunately, we would have loved to have some time to hear from your perspectives as well. We would have loved to open up the discussion, to have further conversations around this. But I do believe that the panelists, our esteemed panelists, will be around and will be happy to continue the conversation after this panel. So it is my pleasure to thank all of you, Your Majesty, Sir Nassim Lahri, and Mr. Minister of Finance, Sheku Fantamadi Angura. I'd like to thank all of you for sharing your insights and your perspectives on this panel. But I think the great takeaway from the discussion is that Africa does not need to wait for permission to lead differently. The responsibility and opportunity already rests with this room and beyond. Thank you very much.
People to be sure that the audience will be able to relate and accept what they are bringing. So I did a little simple exercise that I learned 2 days ago when I arrived here at a conference. I'll just do this simple exercise. I'll just count 1 to 3 and say go and expect us to just clap once. Is this something we can do? Thank you very much. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I didn't say go.
It's a beautiful country with beautiful people. We have lovely smile, and we are peace. And we are peace at heart. We have faced many battles, conquered none, but standing strong. We want to say happy belated birthday to His Excellency, the President. You've added another milestone. You've done a lot. You're surrounded by people who believe you will achieve many more. Added to what already you've achieved. We are celebrating you not only as a birthday, but from a Kora player to happy birthday.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Lala. That was absolutely beautiful. I've never heard the chorus sound so wonderful, so evocative, so moving. Thank you. Thank you for that musical interlude. We approach now the climax of today's program. A lot of leaders, political leaders that is, talk a lot. A lot. And if I'm to misquote Shakespeare, a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. But then, in our president, His Excellency President Maada, we have a leader who's not just speaking, but putting the action behind the words. And I think this colloquium is testament to him putting the action behind his many pronouncements about the importance of scaling up leadership in this country across various sectors. We know cornerstone to his philosophy is, of course, increasing youth leadership participation, as well as empowering women and moving them into positions of power. And this colloquium is doubling down on that rhetoric. This commitment to inclusive leadership is also an understanding that his legacy cannot be built by him alone. It is an inclusive effort that requires all of our collaboration to make this country, and for those from other places, that we ask you to participate in the effort of leadership from whence you come, if you will, to make your spaces and places better. but I guess I can't say it as well as he can. So I'd like to welcome him to the stage. Please rise and put your hands together.
Heads of department, members of the diplomatic and consular corps, our revered paramount chiefs and traditional and religious leaders that are here today, distinguished guests, fellow Sierra Leoneans, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. There are moments in the life of a nation, and indeed, in the life of a continent, when a gathering as such should transcend just ceremony. Moments when it becomes something far consequential. A reckoning, both reflection and responsibility. As we convene for this second leadership colloquium under the theme, reimagining African leadership, courage, accountability, and innovation in an era of global uncertainty, we are not assembled here merely for the exchange of ideas. We are here to confront a defining and unavoidable question. What kind of leadership will shape Africa's future in this 21st century? Ladies and gentlemen, this is our movement. Not a movement inherited, but a movement we should take leadership and define it. History will not remember us that we were present in this movement. If we remember what we did with it, we're going to squander this opportunity. So for me, this is not a question for another generation. Not a question to be deferred until conditions appear more favorable. This is our time. Our time to lead with courage that is decisive and not rhetorical. With accountability that is rooted in trust, not just performance. And with innovation that creates opportunity, not imitation. our time to build institutions that we have lost individuals, to shape economies that reward productivity over dependence, and above all, to reposition Africa not at the margins of global affairs, but at the center of global influence. This is the opportunity before us, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? It admits no further delay. Ladies and gentlemen, before I proceed, it is both a duty and a privilege to recognize our distinguished guests of honor, leaders whose journeys embody the very principle we are here to celebrate and advance. Your Excellency Dr. Joyce Maada, your leadership reflects courage exercised in service, but also anchored in integrity, guided by deep commitment to national development. Thank you. The Right Honorable Patricia Scotland, your tenure affirms that democracy, justice, and principled cooperation are not abstract ideas, but essential foundations. Thank you for building those foundations. Your Royal Majesty, if you are me, afterwards the third, you remind us that enduring progress is most powerful when it is rooted in identity. Thank you for reminding us. And to each one of you present here today, we are honored by your presence and strengthened by the example that you set for us all. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of our theme today lies the word that demands seriousness. Reimagining. Reimagining. Not reforms at the margins, not adjusted rhetoric over unchanged system, but deliberate structural transformation. Deliberate structural foundation, transformation and foundation must be laid. Because the 21st century will not reward any leader that performs change while quietly managing decline. We are living through a profound and irreversible transition in the world. I said it yesterday and I say so again today. As you all know, technology is reshaping power itself. Economic systems are evolving all the time. Climate pressures are intensifying. And democratic institutions are being tested to the core. Let me remind you, this is not temporary turbulence. So as I pilot, I just want you to tighten your belt. And such moments do not reward caution. Don't be too cautious. They reward clarity, decisiveness, and vision. For too long, leadership has been measured by the retention of power rather than the transformation of lives, by patronage rather than performance. That model cannot carry us forward. The This century will reward nations that invest in human capital, build institutions stronger than individuals, sustain public trust through transparency and accountability. There is a bit of truth that must be told here. No nation rises above the quality of its leadership. And when leadership fails, it is not power that collapses trust, it is trust. And once trust is broken, nations do not drift gradually. They unravel and just tumble and fall. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if a leadership is to be understood fully, it must be grounded in experience and wisdom, as has been told by my elder sister. That is why the clergy is always asked to pray for us to be wise. We pray for the wisdom of Solomon to rule. I have personally lived through some of the most difficult chapters in our nation's history. I've seen conflict strip institutions to their barest form. I have also seen the human cost of failed leadership. In particular, in 1996, I faced one of the most consequential decisions of my public life. I chose to hand over power to the democratically elected civilian government. But let me remind you, it was not an act of magnanimity. It was not strategic positioning too. It was grounded in conviction. The conviction that no individual hold on power is greater than the nation's right to democratic governance. And that leadership is not possession. It is stewardship. "20 years on, I have returned, and I returned to leadership not through the force of the bullet, but through the ballot. I've converted bullets to ballots. That journey, I must confess, shaped my understanding of constitutional order, accountability, but also leadership. Because leadership in its truest form is not easy for those aspiring to be leaders. There are reforms that generate resistance before they deliver results. There are moments when responsibility and popularity move in opposite directions. And it is in those moments that leadership is defined, but also tested. But in the choices we make when the cost is rare. Africa requires leaders willing to make those choices. Because in the end, leadership is not tested when it is easy. It reveals itself when it is costly. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is in those defining moments that leadership reveals its true character. And I have been part of it, at least in our recent history. And that is why the pillars of our theme are not separate ideas, but interconnected dimensions of a single leadership ethic. courage without accountability, or accountability without courage becomes inaction. Innovation without both will lead to spectacle. Courage requires acting before it is convenient. It requires confronting corruption consistently and reforming systems even when they resist. The era of managing decline, while speaking the language of transformation must end now if Africa is to be part of the 21st century. Without accountability, trust erodes. Without trust, governance cannot endure. Public office is not ownership. It is responsibility held on behalf of the people. And then I spoke about innovation earlier. Africa's greatest resource is not in it, that's why it has been alluded to earlier. It is within our people. And that is why I made human capital development my flagship program. Across our continent, young Africans are building, creating, and redefining what is possible. We had them yesterday. They are not waiting, they are creating opportunity. And to every young person, I implore you, do not wait for perfect conditions before you lead or contribute to national building, to nation building. Africa's future will be written by those who move with courage, with purpose, and with conviction. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership we speak of is not abstract. It is being tested here and now in our region. As chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, I speak with full awareness of the weight of this moment. West Africa stands at the crossroads. A real choice with real consequences. We have witnessed what happens when governance loses legitimacy, when economic exclusion deepens frustration, and when young people no longer see their future in democratic systems. This is not hypothetical. It is indeed, we can see the pattern here. The stability of our region cannot be secured by force alone. It must be secured by legitimacy, and sustained, and visible in the daily lives of our people. But institutions, 5 institutions that outlast individuals, by governance that delivers, by inclusion that gives citizens a stake in what we do in the public space. No region can be stable where opportunity is absent. And no democracy can endure where hope is no longer visible. In an era of uncertainty, weak leadership entrenches instability. But can restore it. This is the task before us all. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living through one of the most consequential periods of global restructuring in modern history. Old certainties are dissolving before our own eyes. New alignments are emerging on a regular basis. So, Africa must be smart. Africa must choose strategy over reaction. We can no longer afford to be a continent shaped by events. We must become a continent that shapes events. The truth is, we must deepen integration, expand intra-Africa trade, and speak with coherence and confidence. We must defend democracy, not because it is imposed, but because it is owed to our people. Africa cannot enter the future fragmented, or we are going to be at the receiving end of another great revolution. After all, we are 1.4 billion people, young, dynamic, and full of potential. This century can belong to Africa, but only if Africa decides to live its own story and write its own story. Be the author. We stand on the shoulders of generations who endured and believed. But that inheritance does not permit complacency. It demands response, collective response from all of us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, most leaders in this room know too well that leadership is temporary. Every leader relinquishes power. The office we occupy is borrowed. Time is infinite. But these institutions endure, nations endure, and the consequences of our choices also endure. When my leadership journey is over and this chapter of mine is assessed, I do not wish to be remembered for the position of His Excellency, the Chief Executive, the founding of honor, but for my contribution to this nation. Contribution to governance, contribution to institutional stability, to a generation that will build beyond us, the youth. And that is why we must invest in empowering them. Too many obstacles, and most of what they require actually is in our possession, and we are holding it, sometimes not considerably. I hope it will be said that at a critical moment, we chose reform over complacency, hope over cynicism, and long-term progress over short-term convenience. Because, as has been said earlier, I must say this as a point of emphasis, leadership is not the accumulation of power, but the enlargement of opportunity and possibility. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with this. Leadership is not a title. It is a practice. Leadership is exercised every day in homes, in community, in classrooms, in boardrooms, and sometimes even in the bedroom. Each of us carry that responsibility to reject corruption, to strengthen institutions, and to leave every space better than we found it. Africa does not lack talent. Africa does not lack resilience. What Africa requires urgently is leadership equal to the scale of its destiny. This is Africa's defining century. And future generations are going to ask us, what did you do with this opportunity? Are we going to choose courage over comfort? Transformation or complacency? Or are we merely just going to hold power? Or are we going to reimagine possibility? The question is no longer whether Africa will rise. The question is whether Africa will lead that rise or watch it pass by, slip through our fingers. I believe Africa is rising, not by accident and not by chance, but by vision, resilience, and disciplined effort on our part. It is our time to build, our time to defend democracy, and our time to lead. It is our time to write Africa's story with our own hands. Africa's moment has arrived. And this time, Africa must lead. Thank you.
Be a continent shaped by events, but by a continent that shapes events. I'm sure this is going to be a quote that will be on the network news this evening. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move very, very fast. And the next, of course, will be a very clear message. An instruction has been given to
Radio True DJ on FM 103.9. Radio True DJ on FM 103.9. Now we voice, now we power. True video go shine like tower. We no go fear, we go talk. Even if they know how make we talk. True Media Radio on FM 103.9. Now God we dey pray, not true we dey preach. Freedom us alone, we go stand tall. Radio, true PJ. One voice for all. We honor the land, the struggle, the fight. We shine a light in the darkest night because we believe in hard work.
Observe. I have very few minutes. And it's good I have few minutes because I am most times very talkative, but for good. All has been said about our president. All. I stand here, June 12 makes me 8 years old. I don't know how many people are here that are older than me. I only wish to thank you, our President, from the bottom of my heart, and very sincerely too. When I say so, those who know me, most of the audience here, they know me 50 years of loyalty to our opposition party, the APC, who are the Shaka Stevens trained. I was member of parliament when Maada Bio was handing over power to the late President Ahmed Tijan Kabaka. He had every opportunity not to hand over, but he chose to hand over. I love my heart to you, Mr. President. He went away, he never caused trouble. He loved this country, and he came back, exchanged the bullets for the ballots to put in, and he won elections. When he won, I was Secretary General, National Secretary General of the opposition party. I love my heart to you again for accepting the results. And he was president. When we ran again the second time, he was president. I was still National Secretary General of the opposition. And he won. I know that he won. Very free and fair election. I love my heart to you. Maada comes from a very humble background. I am here to say thanks to him. So please forgive me if I spend 2 minutes or 3 minutes plus 1 or 2. He belongs to the whole country. As a soldier, young soldier, he started in Lombe, Garrison, Northern Region. He went as far as to, not Batkano, the Soso area in Cambia, deeper into the north. And when the war broke out, he was one of the very first to go to Ekumo to serve. And when he was repositioned or redirected, he went to the war front. He held the bullet, the gun. He was in the Bumaru, Shebema area where the war was right. And I got my heart to you again, Mr. President. Not just because you are president. We are here at a time when I feel very happy. With the galaxy of visitors, I have seen a very eloquent Sherina here, Aisha Sisi, the journalist, international journalist. I was in class with the father, Mahmoud Sisi. We graduated probably 1969. Last of Dohan. They came from Maburuka, I came from Moscow. I would say thanks to Maada for so many things that have been said. Here we are, the colloquium is reimagining African leadership. He has all the qualities. He has all these qualities. So thank you, Maada. I saw Maada as a young, I will not call him boy. He's the boss. That's 52 years ago. I saw our president. But in him, you will see promising child growing up. And when I was district officer at Pujem, our president was still in elementary school, the Holy Family School. But in him, you will see a lot of promises. He speaks very little. He is very wise. He's very eloquent. He's very sensible. He has leadership qualities. He speaks very little. And the person who speaks very little makes very little, fewer mistakes. I thank you for that. Please continue. Our president has a national appeal. All that has been said about good governance, encouraging our people, the courage and accountability, the credibility, the competence, the education, inclusiveness, human capital development. Fine. Beautiful. He has them all. But I think he was destined to rule this country. He was. I have the firm pleasure to see my dear wife, who is not here, who was married to me in Kabbalah 53 years ago, who was classmate of our president's late elder sister. They grew up together. My wife tells me to give this message, and the president particularly, that the president, our president Maada, who I knew 60, who is now 62, I knew 52 years ago, in 1974, when I was district officer in Pujem. He had the potential to be a leader because he was always very, very cautious. Thank you, Mr. President, for leading our country. And thank you for changing our generation. The leader does not always come from the front, come from behind, and that is him. The Bible says so. Amongst Abraham's children, the leader came from behind. He came from behind. By some stroke of fortune, we attended the same school, but he didn't find me there. I did, or we have been doing so much for our school, but he has done far more, triple more, quadruple more, much more for our school than I standing here, who put the very name school. So, Mr. President, the audience has said it all. And you did say you are working with a team you believe and you trust. I say thanks again, as I stand here, to the organizers of this colloquium, to all the ministers, all the commissioners, all the dignitaries, and even our security forces. Maada is part of security, and he holds them in good esteem. Please, I would like to inform you that perhaps following your footsteps, though I am so many, many years older, I just took steps to be ease up outside. And I was followed by virtually the whole country, not the crowd. People from Bon, from Pujem, from Kailam, from Kono, from Cambia, from Kwainadugu, from Wayamba. That is you. You are a leader that embraces your country. You are a leader who does not live in the luxury of leadership. But you are a leader, selfless. You are services delivery to your country, to our country. as we leave this hall, we can only pray for you to have more and more and more bodies to come. We pray that you grow much older than the man standing here. We pray that you continue to acquire several, much more laurels. You live with dignity and you will live with respect. I believe, though politics most times could be an ungrateful gift, you have worked so hard for this country. You have worked for the women folk. Maada has worked for the women folk. One of the speakers, Lady Panda, said, and speaker after speaker after speaker, they said it. We acknowledge that. That's your legacy. When I was in Parliament, we could count women, perhaps only 5. But today, we have 30%. So as I leave there, thanking you, Maada. Those of you who don't know what the meaning of Maada is, a grandpa, he was given the name of the grandpa, Maada Julius Maada. Maada comes from all the districts of the south. Oh, Boo, that's Yegele, Moyamba, the mother side, Bon, where we know them, and Fujian, where he grew up. Look at that. Who else has that type of spread? Not even me. So, Maada, thank you for transforming this our country. Thank you for respecting our women folk. Thank you for the youth. I see Madam waving to me. I was in class. Let me not say it again. The late Mahmoud Sese, you are died. From Maburuka, me from both. So, ladies and gentlemen, our international guests, thank you for coming. We pray that you go back safe and that you continue to work within. My prayers are he leaves this country much better. He is living it much better than he found it. I am not ashamed to say so. He is living our country much better than he ever found it. So, Maada, thank you for the beautiful speech. Whilst I was all what I was, up to Vice President, we never had such a colloquium. We never had. Thank you for taking our country so high. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our heartfelt thanks to the former Vice President, the Honorable Victor Foe. Thank you, thank you. As we bring this program to a close, I want to add to the thanks. His Excellency President Maada has already acknowledged our distinguished guests, but there are many, many more of you who are here that we also want to thank. And I'd like to start by thanking the Honourable Ministers who are here in the House, Chief Minister, the Honourable Ministers who are here, the Deputy Ministers, the members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, heads of government agencies. Thank you so much for being here. We also have with us paramount chiefs and other traditional leaders. Our thanks to you. And leaders of other political parties are here on this day. We are grateful for your attendance. And of course, members of civil society, we thank you. You could have been anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country. You chose to spend your time with us. And on behalf of His Excellency President Dr. Julius Maada and the First Lady Fatima Bio, I'd like to say thank you for your time this afternoon. One note of housekeeping as we formally close. After this, as we depart from this space, lunch is served. I'm going to keep the President's analogy of plane travel going and ask you to check your name tags. Because on your name tags, it says whether you're VVIP or VIP or you're another, what your welcome guests, as each of you are. And so as we leave here, please check your passes, like when you're getting on the plane and they say, please check the zone you're in before you board. Please check, and as you head out, the protocol officers will guide you to the Bintamani Conference Center, where we have 3 rooms set aside for lunch. We have them grouped. So please check your passes, the name tags you're wearing around your neck, and a consular officer will guide you to your appropriate seats if we're talking about planes. So I'll thanks to you again for joining us for lunch. It would be lovely to see you, and please do join us so we can continue the conversation there. At this point, I'd like to welcome the President's Press Secretary, Yusuf Kekatuma Sandi, who's going to coordinate the group photo and the national anthem. And from me, thank you so much for welcoming me. It's been great being with you all. My thanks.
A loud round of applause for Aisha and Benji. Thank you very much, all man from Nigeria. Because of the exigency of time, we're only going to have 2 photo sessions. The first will be His Excellency the President, Madam First Lady, the Honorable Vice President, the former President of Malawi, His Majesty the King, the former Vice President Victor Foe and Baroness Scotland. That will be the first. The second will be those in the first will stay, and then we'll have the following people to join. The Chief Justice will join Head of the Judiciary. The Deputy Speaker, representing Parliament, will also join. The Dean of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, representing diplomats. The former Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament. The Deputy Mayor of Freetown Municipality will also join. We will also have the National Chairman of the SLPP and the National Chairman Emeritus will also join for the second photo session. After that session, all those who have been announced will go back to their seats, and then we will do national anthem to bring the program to an end. So we'll start by inviting the President, the King, His Majesty. Thank you very much. The Honorable Chief Justice will join. The former ECOWAS Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, former Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament will join. The Chief Minister, the National Chairman of our party, then the National Chairman Emeritus will also join. You can have someone at the back here, someone at the back. See it. Thank you very much. This team would stay, and the ministers will quickly stand at back quickly. Your Excellency, the ministers, they said they want their own birthday photo. So the ministers will quickly join. Ministers will quickly join at the back. Ministers and the Dean of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps. Ministers will join at the back quickly. Yes. Deputy ministers are join at the back as well. Deputy ministers join at the back as well. Up on that side. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll then return to our seats for the national anthem. Sierra Leone band will now lead us. Your Excellency, sir, please rise for the national anthem. Please remain standing for the departure of His Excellency the President, Madam First Lady, Vice President, the King, His Majesty, the former President of Malawi, and Baroness. Thank you once again to everyone for coming. Security sector leadership.
Them one set we more them, but we go shout.